Zoom recording. Hi, everybody. Welcome. So glad you can join us this, I want to say lovely afternoon, gray outside. But thank you for coming out. Thank you for joining us and being here to learn of like how we participate in the local like agriculture and farming here at the Department of Environmental Management. And we do have our guest here from OER. Um, Yeah, it's my pleasure to, well, first and foremost, my name is Chris Gaynor. I am the community engagement specialist here at DEM, and I am often the host of these community conversations. And this is one of many within a series that we have recorded and held on our website that I'm happy to share while we proceed. I would like to introduce Ananda Fraser, who will present on our growing Rhode Island in agriculture. Oh, more people are coming, as well as Kyle, who will present on behalf of OER and how was it solar for all, if I recall, Kyle, or something around solar. Um,
Yeah, it's the agricultural energy program.
Beautiful. And then Kyle will share much more about that later on in the presentation. And lastly, I'd like to introduce our Spanish interpreter for the evening, or evening. I'm too used to that for the afternoon, Patty, who will be available for us in Spanish. Yeah, Spanish interpretation. So go ahead, Patty.
Hi, everybody. So just want to let you know we will be doing simultaneous Spanish interpretation, which means I will be in a separate channel interpreting along with the speaker. So there's no need to pause. Just speak at a moderate pace. So once the interpretation is turned on, you will see a globe at the bottom of your screen, or you will see three dots that say more. Please go ahead and choose your channel. Everybody must choose a channel. So if you want to listen in English, it's important in case there's questions or anything from somebody speaking in the Spanish channel. And I will just go ahead and give the instructions in Spanish just in case somebody's on. Vamos a tener interpretación simultáneamente. Cuando vean que el globo se prenda abajo de su pantalla, vamos a elegir el canal de español. Vamos ahora a aprender la interpretación. And we can go ahead and get started now.
Fantastic. We're going to see Patty disappear if you are an English speaking person. And as Patty has shared, if choose your language. So if folks need English speaking, choose the interpretation English, and for those, excuse me, need Spanish speaking, choose SP. And with that, what's happening here? I'd like to begin our presentation. So let me start to share my screen. There we go. Here we are. All right, this is for you, Ananda. Can you see my
Alrighty, good
screen?
afternoon. Oh, I can see it now.
Yeah,
Yep,
fantastic. Yeah.
perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ananda Fraser Ramirez. I am currently the acting chief of the Division of Agriculture and Forest Environment. I am going to give a quick overview. If at any time folks have questions, feel free to, raise your hand, put it in the chat, or I'm sure we'll have an opportunity for questions at the end. I want to make sure that you get all the information that you would like out of this presentation. So feel free to engage as much as possible. Next slide. Great. So something that is unique, we're at the Division of Agriculture and Forest Environment. We have two distinct branches, agriculture and forestry. Rhode Island is one of only two states with a Division of Agriculture, and not a standalone department. However, we are tasked with a lot of the same goals and objectives. In my opinion, being a part of DEM is a strength of our division. in that we are connected with our other offices and divisions. So if there are environmental issues on a farm or a forest or food business, we're able to help make those connections and work within DEM to solve and help our clients, which are farmers, fishers, and foresters. So on this slide, I have a list of the sections within agriculture. Some may make a lot of sense, and others you may, wonder that lives in agriculture as you see it. We're going to talk about each of the sections, and so I won't read the list or spend a lot of time going through it just because we'll cover that later on in the presentation. Next slide, please. So the other branch of our division is forestry, and our state recognizes that Rhode Island forest land has many important values, and that forests should be maintained to meet Rhode Island's climate goals through carbon sequestration and storage. It's also important to note that forests also have huge recreational purposes in Rhode Island, and we have folks in our staff that are dedicated to ensure recreational access to our forests. And so the forestry mission includes management of our forests for multiple benefits, including wildlife habitat and preservation, ecosystem services like clean air, clean water, and those services that forests naturally provide, overall forest health. And so there are forest pests and forest diseases that can significantly negatively impact our forests. And so we have a forest health team that is out in the field on a regular basis looking for those pests and are having methods to mitigate those as best as possible. We do support research within our forestry. We have an urban and community forestry program. We administer grants to many municipalities throughout the state for urban forestry, for cooling purposes, to make sure that we can kind of break up our heat deserts in the city. And then also recreation. So we manage I don't have the exact number on the top of my head, but several hundreds of miles of non-paved forest roads to make sure that there is access to our forests for recreational purposes, whether it be bikes, ATVs, other recreational vehicles. And then we also manage, again, several hundred miles of recreational trails throughout our state forest and management areas to ensure that the public that wants to have access via foot into these recreational areas do that as well. Right. So next slide, please. And the majority of the presentation will cover our agriculture. So that's why I kind of went into the forestry piece a little bit more because we're going to focus on agriculture for the rest of the presentation. So one of the major things that our division focuses on is land access. And so as you can imagine, in a state like Rhode Island, one of our largest challenges to agriculture is land access and keeping land in agricultural production. Now, this is not just a Rhode Island issue. This is a United States issue where we're losing farmland at a significant rate. And so we know that farmland or keeping land in farming has a myriad of benefits, including preserving farmland, helping store carbon, keep communities cooler, improving access to healthy food, and benefiting both climate sustainability and human health. However, Rhode Island also has the highest agricultural land values in the country. And so because of this, that's something that we focus on to ensure that, one, our land that is currently in farmland can remain in farmland, and that when opportunities arise, we can purchase land and keep it out of development to make sure that those benefits remain. So we have three main programs in our office that work on farmland preservation and access. The first is the Farmland Preservation Program, which started in the 80s. And essentially, the state purchases the development rights for farmers from farmers, which enables them to retain ownership of their property while protecting land for agricultural use. And so far, we have preserved over 8,000 acres of farmland and over 125 farms, which is about 10% of the total farms in Rhode Island that are preserved through this program. The next program is the Farmland Access Clearinghouse, which is an incentive, for sellers of Rhode Island farmland to keep their land in farming and not like let it go to a different use. The last program, which is probably the most widely used program, and this is something that we use both in our agriculture and our forestry parts of the division, is the Farm, Forest, and Open Space Act, which again came about in the 80s. And essentially, it reduces the cost of land ownership through tax incentives. And so the land is taxed at an agricultural rate or a forested rate or an open space rate instead of the way that, our residential properties are taxed as best and highest use. And so, for example, if I have a 10-acre property, my house is on 1 acre, but 9 acres are in farmland. The 1 acre that's residential will be taxed as a residential property, but the remaining 9 will be taxed as a farm. And so it reduces the financial burden for our farmers. Next slide, please. Cool. All right, agricultural development. So part of our mission is to make sure that our farms, foresters, and fishers remain viable. We just talked about farmland being extraordinarily expensive. And so ag development is a huge piece to make sure that the businesses can thrive. So we do that in several ways. We do offer a number of grants and marketing and promotion programs. We receive several federal grant programs through the U.S. Department of Agriculture. All of these grants are pass-through grants. So what that means is that we don't really keep much of the funds in-house. Those dollars go out into the community. Maybe we keep 5-10% of it to administer the grant, but the majority of it goes out to help those businesses get what they need in order to flourish. And so we have a local food purchasing program where farmers are able to grow produce, and actually it also supports fisheries, providing produce and protein, like fish as a protein source, into underserved communities. We have a farmer rancher stress relief network grant, which we work with the Center for Mediation of Rhode Island, and they provide mental health services for farmers. Farmers and fishers are some of the highest percentages of mental health concerns for professions. And so we recognize that these are stressful careers and want to make sure that folks have the resources that are necessary. So there's a 24/7 hotline if folks are in distress. Then they are trained to work with folks that are farmers and fishers. We do have seafood processing relief grants, our specialty crop block grant, which most of the things that we grow in Rhode Island are considered specialty crops. When you think of the middle of the country, wheat, soy, corn, those are called commodity crops. And so our specialty crop block grant is meant to promote and develop increased consumption of our specialty crops. So that's our sweet corn, not the, corn that grows in the Midwest, peppers, cucumbers, kind of things you think of when you think of a farm in Rhode Island. It also includes flowers and horticulture, because actually in Rhode Island, our largest dollar value agriculture are from non-edible crops, so nurseries and things like that. We also recently had a resilient food infrastructure grant that is still in the process of finishing up, where we were able to help mid-supply chain businesses. So transportation, food hubs, food aggregators, folks that process foods. I was just on a call with one of our coworkers who works in the supply chain because of this grant. and is working on getting locally grown grains into schools with a processor. And so that's the kind of thing that we're looking for. It's like, how do we take these grant funds and help get local foods into our communities? We have one state grant program. That's the Local Agriculture and Seafood Act, and that is focused on small, beginning, and traditionally underserved growers and food processors, and really focusing on small businesses that need additional capital in order to kind of get them to the next level. We also have a state marketing brand, All Right Grown, that lives within our division, and the goal is to support and promote locally grown anything. It can be produce, it can be timber, it can be raised things, so cattle and all of that. So our goal is to help do the marketing for our producers so that they don't have to. And we've had a lot of success. In July of last year, our All Right Grown social media had, over 1 million unique hits to just that site, that people are really interested in how to get local food and where they can find it. Next slide. Perfect. So one of the several sections within the division, with the goal of protecting public health, is our food safety, it's our food safety branch. And so that's also something that, traditionally we don't think of public health as part of the Department of Agriculture, but we do have several public health sections. And so the Food Safety Modernization Act is kind of what triggered some of this. That act came about in 2011 and is moving to a proactive approach to foodborne illness. So I'm sure you guys, may hear on the news or online about produce recalls, romaine lettuce. If you purchase romaine lettuce within this batch or this date, you need to kind of throw it out. And so that actually worked through our office. Knock on wood, Rhode Island has never had a foodborne illness outbreak. But we work really closely with our growers to make sure that they are following good agricultural practices to ensure the safety of our food supply. And we also do the same with animal feed. We don't have a lot of large animal feed producers in Rhode Island, but we do have a lot of folks. And animal feed can be anything from, corn that is meant to feed livestock to pet food in your neighborhood pet store. So it does span a whole range, and we do license all of those businesses. We're also responsible for traceability. That part is not as fleshed out yet. That rule is relatively new, and the FDA is taking a bit of a pause on what the implementation of that looks like. And so that will be something that we will be doing in the next year or so. Our office also does shell egg grading, which means that if someone is a large egg producer, so not the people with coolers at the end of their driveway, we don't police any of that. But if folks are large egg layers, we go and inspect them on a quarterly basis to make sure they are following the U.S. Department of Agriculture guidelines for safety and their egg quality. A piece of this is also market access. In order to get into a grocery store or sell into schools, a farm needs to have a third-party food safety audit. In our region, if you go through a private auditor, that starts at about $3,000 before they've even kind of stepped a foot on your farm. And so in order to remove that barrier from our farms and to allow them to get market access into the community, we provide that service, audit service to them at no cost to the grower to allow them to get into those market channels, which is called Rhode Island GAP, which is good agricultural practices. Alrighty. We also do food and nutrition programs. And so I think, most people are more familiar with things like WIC or SNAP, which are U.S. Department of Agriculture food nutrition programs. Our office does not administer WIC or SNAP. However, we do administer a sister program to those, which is the Rhode Island Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program. And essentially, we provide $50 cards to eligible seniors to purchase local fruits, vegetables, and honey Last year in 2025, we served almost 7,000 seniors. And these are folks at senior centers. They can go to farmers markets or certain farm stands. And we also work with Meals on Wheels to deliver produce boxes to homebound seniors, which I think is important. Sometimes, the Meals on Wheels boxes are the only ones that those seniors, the only interaction that they have. And so we really value our partnerships throughout the community in order to make things like that happen. We also do a farm to school program. So in October every year, there's an Apple Crunch event. And we work really, really diligently in order to get more local food into schools. And so we have a Farm and Seed to School network, which is a collaboration between our division, the Department of Education, Department of Health, in order to work on getting more food into schools. And also, that also includes seafood. So recently on the news, you may have heard of like monk sliders. That was a pilot that our pharmacy school network started a few years ago and has taken off with monk sliders being served in several school districts throughout Rhode Island. And I already mentioned a local food purchasing agreement, which does help to bring local produce and seafood into underserved communities at a reduced cost, because we know that local foods can sometimes be expensive. Next slide, please.
Actually, before we move on, I was curious, is there a
Sure.
relationship to, well, yes, I have a question. Hello. Is there a relationship to the Rhode Island Food Bank at all with like the distribution or connection with food?
Absolutely. So we work really closely with the Rhode Island Food Bank, and the new executive director of the food bank grew up on a farm.
Mm,
And she had, we are working on with the goal of how do we get more local food into the food bank. So a couple ways that we do that. The local food purchasing agreement, we partner with the food bank for that because essentially they have the network, right? The food gets the food bank and they are able to say, all right, this needs to go to these other community pantries around. A lot of the food that the food bank moves doesn't sit at the food bank, it goes into different food pantries around the state. So they have the network, and so we're not trying to duplicate any efforts, really. We don't have the capacity to duplicate efforts. Um, Something else that we always work, with is food recovery. So let's say a farmer has, and this happens quite often, a farmer has a tractor trailer load of potatoes. And so we work with the food bank and figuring out how much can they take, and where can it go. So we have it's called a surplus commodity form where anyone can reach out to us and let us know that they have surplus food, not like prepared foods, but whole foods that can be donated, and we work on getting them harvested if they're not already harvested, and then transported to where they're needed with the food bank. So absolutely.
very
Um,
cool. Thank you. On to the next slide.
no problem. All right. Our animal health section is another public health section of our division. And I like to tell people our state vet has probably the most interesting job in state government. I haven't seen anyone that has a more interesting job, so will continue to say that until I'm proven otherwise. Our animal health division regulates all animal health issues. And so this can be from like livestock to exotic animals, like you see that crocodile in that picture. That crocodile was in Woonsocket. Um, and and like pets. So we also regulate pet stores, pet breeders, and veterinary offices and things like that. And so they investigate animal cruelty. We have really stringent animal cruelty laws in Rhode Island, and that's something that our Safe Ed takes pride in. Emergency pet sheltering, something that we learned through Hurricane Katrina, is that people will not leave their house if there is not a place for them to bring their pets. And so because of that, we learn from events and we try to do better going forward. And we took that to heart and now, working with emergency sheltering, if there is a hurricane or there's a blizzard or anything like that where people will lose power and cannot stay in their homes, that there are shelters that will accept their animals as well. Obviously, they support the agricultural community with livestock. Our state vet is he's a large animal vet, and so he does do support for the agricultural community. Um, we work with other public health agencies, so we have close relationships with the Department of Health, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the FDA, which is the Federal Food and Drug Administration, and the CDC, the Center of Disease Control. I mentioned that we regulate exotics and wild animals. There's that crocodile, there's been zebras, there's like you name it, and people have put it in their homes. And so anytime there's an issue like that, our office does get involved. We do also respond to outbreaks. And so the most recent one, or the one that folks would most relevant to like kind of everyday people, is high path avian influenza or high path AI, which we've technically been in an outbreak since 2022. However, egg prices like a year or two ago were extraordinarily high. They were high due to high path avian influenza. During that time, all 50 states have had cases related to poultry, and almost 180 million domestic poultry had to be depopulated, which means that we had a shortage of laying birds and like feeder birds, which are like the chicken that we eat, as well as chicken that lay the eggs that we eat as well. So, in Rhode Island, we did have 2 cases of high path avian influenza in our state. This is a cyclical disease, so it's related to the migration of waterfowl. So if geese are migrating, we see a spike. But everyone can relate to higher prices when they buy eggs in the grocery store, and animal disease is what was causing that problem. Another public health portion of our office is vector disease control, specifically mosquitoes. And so our office, we have a mosquito abatement coordinator who does surveillance. So they are already in swamps, probably today, looking for mosquito larvae to determine, when we could expect to start seeing our first mosquitoes. They do prevention and control. They work with municipalities to provide larvicide. So essentially, they want to make sure the mosquitoes don't reach maturity. And so they do outreach so that folks can put it in their storm drains in order to get mosquito populations down. And then doing just a lot of outreach in the community to ensure that people know when we have high mosquito disease loads, when we're starting to see, every Friday in the summer we put out a news bulletin. And so some people may see it's like, oh, West Nile was discovered in this area. That is coming out of our office in a partnership with Department of Health. Alrighty, next slide, please. Oh, sorry, I should have told you next slide before about mosquito abatement, and I forgot. I was just talking. So apologies for skipping over the slide, which actually has some good action shots of them in the field.
Yeah, we'll just take a second, enjoy the pictures, just appreciate like the engagement that the vector disease control team is with like the mosquitoes. Just like linger for a little bit. And all right, next slide.
Perfect. All right, next slide. Sorry about that. So, we, especially once we get into like better weather, obviously, we have a lot of community engagement. So I picked a couple examples from last year. This is all from a year ago, from the last season, of our community engagement with the Division of Agriculture and Forest Environment. And so this first slide, we are the picture on the left is at a senior farmers market nutrition pop-up event. And so something that we will do is that we will bring the farmers market to the senior center or a congregate site. And so we work with our Office of Healthy Aging to identify those places, and we kind of will go wherever the need is. And so this one, I believe, was in Burrville. Um, and so last year we ran 12 of those markets through the state where we work with farmers to bring a farmers market to a senior center. Folks can get their $50 gift card and purchase their produce and honey right there. And so they're very successful. The seniors love the engagement. They love to be able to pick their own foods, to be completely honest, and have like real quality, fresh ingredients at their doorstep. The plan is for us to expand the pop-up markets in this year, 2026. And we are planning on working with our Department of Health to get into our WIC and HES locations in order to make that happen. The top right corner is our work with Meals on Wheels. And so those are the produce boxes that I mentioned. Sometimes we help pack the boxes too. And that's an example of a box that would go home with our growers. So something that we also do is provide recipes because sometimes, there's only so many peppers, tomatoes, and carrots that we can put in a box for $50. And so we give recipes in case someone gets something that they aren't necessarily familiar with, treat it like some spinach. Most people know how to cook spinach, so it's like treat it like something and give them a recipe. Alrighty, next slide. I mentioned earlier that land access is an issue and access to farmland because of the cost can be an issue as well. Rhode Island DM Division of Ag, we own, I think now 6 different farms across the state where we lease the land out to farmers at an extraordinarily low rate, where folks can go who may not have the traditional access to farmland or open space, because open space has its own health benefits. To folks for them to be able to grow either their own food or for commercial farms. And so the example here is the JL Curran State Park, which is in Cranston. We work with the Hmong United Association, and there are over 70 families that are able to grow their own food and enjoy the health benefits of the park. We also own multiple properties in Cranston and Johnston, and are in the process of acquiring another property in Johnston that will be used in a similar way. Something that's really like when we get out into the community and we talk with these folks, a lot of the folks from the Hmong United Association are refugees or folks that lived through war and may have PTSD, and getting out of the city and into open space has significant health benefits for them as well. And they may have been farming in their homeland and currently don't have access to the land in order to farm. So they are skilled farmers, but they just may not have the ability to purchase land at this time. And this provides them opportunity to continue to farm. And if their business is viable, then they can potentially scale. Next slide, please. Alrighty, so our forestry portion of our division, recently we had Arbor Day, which was 2 Fridays ago. And so we are, part of forestry is providing trees to communities. We have like a reward system for different communities that are considered like Tree Town USA. You may drive by and see like a plaque or like a sign as you enter different communities. That is a national award recognition that comes through our division for forest environment. And so something that we had that was really successful was the Free Tree Initiative, which also is called the Energy Saving Tree Program, where we provide Rhode Islanders with free trees to plant on their property. And the program is aiming to expand tree canopy and improve health while also helping homeowners reduce their cost. And so I personally think this is one of the best programs because buying trees can be very expensive. And knowing the right tree to buy is also like its own skill because a lot of trees aren't necessarily native to Rhode Island, but the ones you get from this program are. They're trees that belong here and are not invasive, that won't outcompete our native trees. Next slide, please. Alrighty, so something that we also do is that we have DEM run farmers markets. And so we have, I'm gonna say 2.5, because we partner running a third, farmers markets in our state. One is at Goddard State Park. We have one at Fisherman Memorials Park every week. And starting in July, we will also partner with Farm Fresh Rhode Island to have a farmers market in Woonsocket. And so this is also helping support agricultural businesses and giving them a market opportunity to sell their local products, as well as getting fresh fruits and vegetables into the community. And so last year we saw 30,000 vendors between the Goddard and Fisherman Memorials Farmers Market, not vendors, 30,000 customers, sorry, at the Fisherman's and Goddard Park farmers markets. And so they have been very successful. And also, we don't charge our vendors to be at the market. Almost all other farmers markets, there is a cost associated with being a vendor there. But we offer that's free of charge, knowing that this is a great market opportunity to have direct to consumer sales. Rhode Island leads the nation in direct to consumer sales of fruits and vegetables. And we take that market channel pretty seriously in making sure that, folks have that opportunity going forward. Next slide. This is agriculture in schools. And so I mentioned our Apple Crunch, which is that picture on the left-hand side where we get local produce into schools. We have local purchasing agreements with certain school districts and their food suppliers. We also work with agricultural education as part of curriculum for folks to understand where their food comes from. I'll tell an anecdotal story. I have young children, and when my oldest daughter was in pre-K, they had chickens in their classroom and they hatched and they asked them to, said, hey, you can take these home if you want. And one of the people asked, oh, why are you giving me resources for chickens? I don't want a chicken. I want this chick. And didn't understand that the cute little yellow chick was going to grow into a chicken. So I don't say that to disparage anyone, but part of it is agriculture education and understanding our food system and where does the food come from? Like that chick may turn into a chicken that lays eggs for you one day, and understanding what that means and what's involved. And so we work with school districts, we work with school superintendents in order to have agricultural education as part of their curriculum going forward. And so this is in Smithfield, the school superintendent in Smithfield is very proactive in getting farms, foods, and the food system as part of their curriculum, and also to have a technical program where high schoolers can grow their own food. They can learn the food business. They can learn how to prepare foods. And so if they want to get into a hospitality type industry, that's opportunity for them as well. All right, last slide. All righty, last one is that us as a division in general, we get out, and I guess, Chris, this kind of answers your food bank question. And so something that we support and we support through a policy, but also support by getting out in the field and doing it as well, is gleaning, which is the word that is used for it's like rescuing produce that would otherwise be lost. And so, for example, in the picture, you see some of the Division of Agriculture staff, and we are in a tomato field where the farmer may not have thought it made sense for him to continue to pick that field, but there's still great tomatoes out there. So we or folks go out They rescue those tomatoes, clean them, box them up, put them in a truck, and they end up at the food bank. And so we support this with our policy through partners like Hope's Harvest, but we also do like to get out in the field and get our hands dirty as well. And I think that was it. Last slide is just thank you and happy to answer any questions. Oh, Chris, you're on mute if you're talking.
Thank you, Ananda. That was wonderful. Like I'm just really taken aback by like how much the Department of Agriculture and Forest Environment like just does. There's a lot. I see there's a question from Talia in the chat going back to the farm leases and is how
Yeah.
long are how long are the leases for the farms that DEM own?
So for the properties, we own them outright. The different properties have different lease structures. So for example, Snake Den Park, which is in Johnston, which most people will associate it with wicked tulips. If you have ever been tulip picking in Johnston, that is a DEM property. We own that and sublease it out to farmers. Um, we enter into 5-year leases to start to make sure that it's working. And then with the option of going into a long-term 10-year lease, obviously there's way more legal parameters around that. But we typically do a longer lease because it also, if a farm wants to develop or if a farm wants to develop their business and they go to get a loan, part of what's going to be asked of them is, do you have rights to your property and how long can you stay there? And if it's 1 year, they're going to say, well, what's going to, no loan has a term of 1 year. And so making sure they have a long-term goal, is a long-term lease is part of making sure the business can be supported in other avenues as well. Some other farms that have smaller footprints have a smaller lease time, but they typically start off between 1 to 5 years and then go to 10 once they're good. They know that that's what they want to do. They're in it, and we are happy to support that. You're
Cool.
welcome, Talia.
All right. If there's Yeah, if there's any other questions, we have it like just feel free to either just like raise hand and like and recognize so we can recognize you. But if you just want to like share it in the chat, that also works. But in that time, I would like to introduce our other like guest speaker, Kyle, whose last name I can't pronounce. So Kyle, please help me out. And let me get your presentation ready.
Of course, yeah, it's Joliker.
Joliker. Fantastic.
Yeah,
Cool.
from the French meaning happy heart.
Oh, what? All right, great,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
well, Kyle, it's all yours.
excellent. First of all, thank you, Chris, for organizing this and including me in this. I do appreciate it. And Ananda, hats off to you. Excellent presentation. That was very informative, and thank you very much. So my name is Kyle Joliker. I'm a now rising senior at the University of Rhode Island. I'm a member of the 2026 URI Energy Fellows Program. In my position, I'm at the Office of Energy Resources, working under Abigail Hasenfuss on the Rhode Island Agricultural Energy Program. So this program started back in 2016 and was originally managed by the Rhode Island Resource Conservation and Development Council. Currently, it is now managed concurrently between OER and DEM. The way the program works, so it's a grant to farmers for up to $20,000 for renewable energy or energy efficiency projects. Farmers can repeat the grant or reapply to the grant, for up to 3 times, 2 times for solar and then once for energy efficiency upgrades. The way the grant works, it is a milestone-based grant. So let's say you receive a grant for the maximum amount of $20,000. The first half of that grant payment, the $10,000, would be awarded after a sort of down payment for the materials is put down by the farmer. The second half of the grant payment is given after completion and inspection of the project. The main reason we want to do this project is we understand that land is not cheap in Rhode Island, especially, it's a simple economics lesson. There's not a very big supply and there's a lot of demand, which drives up the price. And we also understand that, especially in times like this, where you can go to the gas station down the street and gas is $4.50 a gallon. Energy prices are soaring at the moment. So we also want to help out farmers with their energy burden. To date, we have helped hundreds of farmers across the state, and we have plenty of returners as well. As of right now, we have 110 total projects. We have just around a little under 100 renewable energy projects, as well as about a dozen energy efficiency projects. And so far, we have awarded over $2 million in grants to our farmers, which is absolutely excellent. We love to see that money circulating in the local economy and benefiting our local farmers. Currently, we are in the process of working with a technical service provider, GDS Associates, who is actually based out in the Midwest, but does some work in the state of Rhode Island and southern New England as well, with agricultural programs similar to ours. We are looking into working with them to offer robust farm-specific audits for farmers. So that could be things like looking at refrigeration and other specific areas that are different than just your traditional Rhode Island Energy Rise engineering audits. We wanted to get them more specific to the farmers that we are helping. That was kind of it for me. I apologize. My presentation isn't as long as Ananda's, but I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has about the program. And if any farmers are on the meeting as well, I'd love to talk to you guys as well. So thank you once again, Chris.
Fantastic, Kyle. I love Jolliker. I love Happy Heart. So yeah, that is our these are our presentations from Ananda and Kyle. This time remaining is for y'all for any thoughts, like any thoughts or curiosities based off of the presentations like you've heard today. I've definitely learned a lot. Like for example, like I'm impressed about how much money and grants has been invested in communities like to date, especially within agriculture. And another is like considering within like my own work of environmental justice and community engagement, the intersections of environmental health, public health, as well as the energy, like incorporating like energy demands or like having lesser like demands. All of that is like a very interesting connection. Like to me, especially also like with the whole like caring for like pets and whatnot, and like finding that community of like where can we find like we recognize that we can't do a thing, we can't save the human unless the human saves their own pet. That is a thoughtfulness that few, I would say, like state departments have considered considerations of. But those were my own reflections and like musings as like I went through this presentation. So I invite any person to just like unmute yourself and just share.
I have a quick comment to make. My name is Savannah Gonzalez. I'm the Energy Justice Program Manager at OER. I was at the HES event at URI a couple weeks or probably months ago now. And I remember, Ananda, you mentioning the number of people who are in the agricultural division, given the amount of work and projects that you do. And I just wanted to call attention to that. And if you could just let everyone know, because it was a big surprise to me, and I'm sure it will be for many of the ones who are attending this call.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, we have less than 20 staff with in the Division of Agriculture and probably another 20-ish in forestry. So, and forestry includes things like wildland firefighters. We have wildland firefighter crews. So, earlier this week when it's still windy, but when we had a brush fire on a private property and our wildland firefighters are responding. And so less than 40 people do all of the work or that was talked about today. So we do a lot. We cover a lot of ground. Thank you for bringing that up.
And thank you for your attendance, Savannah, and also for sharing the community conversations link. That is much appreciated. And for those who've heard the term HES, like we were referring to the Health Equity Zone network that is run. I don't say run, but administered through the Department of Health. It is a broader network of municipalities and towns across the state that often engages in public health awareness and public health just events. And as recently, the Department of Environmental Management has joined forces with the Department of Health to have that intersection I recently spoke to of like environmental health as public health. So yeah. Is there any other thoughts or questions or comments? If not, thank you all very, very, very much for staying for this afternoon. Oh, there's a question. Sorry. A question from Carolyn. How often does this department monitor food waste from agricultural sources like farms or even the farmers market?
So we do have a farm compost program within the division, which is actually not on the slideshow, but we do have a compost program where if farms are composting their materials, then we make sure that they're following best practices in order to do so. And so uh, that we tackle food waste there. A lot of our nonprofit partners are working way more closely with either residential or commercial non-farm businesses on food waste issues. So, commercial and residential composting, how do we get that off and running? Our landfill is full, essentially. And what are some ways that we could divert waste from the landfill into compost? So if someone is a commercial composter, we do support them. So we have a large composting facilities in Rhode Island that utilize farm products, shellfish, like fish waste, which is like fantastic compost. Um, Sometimes livestock, we think of like manure and stuff that's actually a little bit too hay for compost. It's not like great compost material. But yeah, we do work on that from a farm lens, and there are other nonprofits that work on it from kind of a residential commercial lens.
Thank you. And another question from D, and this is referring to the DEM run like farmers markets. And how does one get details about them? How does one find out?
Yeah, so our general farmers market. So I will say this, if you don't follow our Right Grown page, you should do that on Instagram and Facebook. But we also on our DEM general pages, we do have like events that come up for our farmers markets. And I think on our website we also have the farmers market links. For the one in Woonsocket in particular. It is at the Thunder Mist building and it's on a Tuesday. And I don't know if it's on our website just yet because it doesn't start till July, whereas our other farmers markets started last week. So those run May through October, and the one with Socket doesn't start till July.
I just threw some links into the chat
Perfect.
for Rhode
Thank
Island
you,
Grow.
Chris.
Yeah,
Thank
fantastic.
you.
All right. I'm so happy like we were all able to like just learn something from Brandon. That's something that I really value about these community conversations because there's always something to be taken away from it. And yeah, thank you all for your attendance, for your attention, for your questions. And it's yeah, like we can end here because like we have nothing else to say, and that's okay. So I hope everyone else has a good rest of your afternoons. Hug your pets, hug your families, and just be grateful that we have such an incredible team under 40 working in the Department of Agriculture and Forest Environment, as well as an OER working for our farmers and providing affordable energy services. So yeah, have a good day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Stop recording.